Welcome to Two Humans Talking, the podcast where we have the conversations high achieving women actually need. No fluff, no filters, just real talk about what it takes to thrive in this fast paced world. I'm Tiffany Simms, and today's guest is someone you are going to love. If you have ever struggled with how you fit into the mix, how you are stacking up in life, where you belong and where you don't, you are not alone, and today's conversation is just for you. But before we dive in, let me ask you something really real. Do you ever feel like you're crushing it? Your family, your career, your goals, everyone's celebrating you. But behind the scenes, you're running on fumes. No matter how much you accomplish, you still feel stretched too thin, constantly on and wondering if balance is even possible or if you're just broken. If that hit home, I see you. And I know this: working harder, pushing through, and trying to do more is not the answer. You don't need another productivity hack or wellness trend. You need a better way to live, lead, and succeed without burning out. It's exactly why we've created the Modern Woman Society, a private community for women just like you, where your ambition is celebrated and burnout is kicked to the curb because it is not the price of success. If you're tired of doing it alone, wondering if this is just how life is, I promise you it's not. There's a way, and I want to show you how. Click that link below to see what's waiting for you on the inside. Now, let's get into today's conversation with our guest, Rachel Mateo. Rachel and I go back a bit, and we have been hanging out for a while now, and she is absolutely light and love and joy and every ounce of sparkle that you can imagine. So, Rachel, thank you for being here.
Oh, Tiffany, well, right back at you 1,000%. For your listeners, yes, she is everything that you can imagine. She is just as sparkly and wonderful and beautiful in person. So I can vouch for this, but thank you so much for those kind words. I feel
You're
you.
so welcome. I have this like vision imprinted of you in my mind of you standing in the dining room at the mansion in Florida, just practicing learning how to receive compliments.
Yes.
And it is like such a sparkly, genuine, just like my eyes are tearing up thinking about it. Such a powerful photo. And like that is the way I see you, is like that moment of you standing there. But anyway,
Mm.
I want to know, let's share with the people,
Okay.
like what makes you sparkle? What makes you you out in this world? Like tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, I think I fully love to just be that weird inner child, right? That like goofy, have fun, be silly. I could be professional. I could put that hat on, but just you're 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 an adult, right? You have the responsibilities, you've got the life stuff going on, but you still always have the ability to just appreciate fun little dumb things. I feel like I do really well naturally at finding the simple things in life and finding great joy in them. It's always been pretty easy, which I know for so many people it may not be that easy because we can get pushed down and beaten down and overshadowed by our responsibilities, all the adulting. But I feel like that's that sparkle in me. When you said about that question, it's the first thing that came to mind is finding the joy in little things because little things matter. They're there for us all the time, right? We just have to see them.
No truer words. Like
Yeah.
learning how to be playful
Mm.
is like something like as adults, we have to like reteach ourselves because it was beating out of us. Like it's time to grow up. It's time to take your life seriously. Stop goofing around. You're wasting your life away.
Mhm.
And learning how to be the responsible adult that's moving life forward while also learning how to enjoy it is such a skill.
Yeah, yep. And people have fun right along with you. I mean, people like to enjoy themselves and whatever you're doing in life and business. Like if you can have a good time and you can kind of keep things a little lighthearted, people are gonna dig it. They're gonna
They're
enjoy
gonna
it.
flock to it because they're gonna be like, oh my God, I can be free too,
Yeah.
while also not getting like sucked into the drama or being like blackout drunk or like fun can look different and we can be silly and free and still get some epic shit done. Like this is really cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Maybe that's just me talking. Like that's the season I'm in. Like I want to be surrounded by the people who like know how to be silly and goofy and like do silly dances that we would have done when we were 12, but also who aren't like blowing their lives up because they're doing some amazing things out in the world. Like that's my jam right now. So I felt that.
Good. Yeah, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. It's life's too short to be so serious. And it'll take you far, but you'll enjoy it farther and more deeply, I think, if you can find those little joys,
Now,
right? And
did you have to learn that for
yeah.
yourself? Was there a season where like things got a little stuffy, a little too rigid, and you were like, wait a second? Or have you always been like this?
Well, I have always been like this, but I think when it comes time to switch a career path, I mean, I've always been in fitness and wellness, but if I recently, to shift into more of an entrepreneurial space, doing more things on my own, and learning from those who've gone before in many different fields. I felt like, oh, there's a way I got to show up. There's a way I got to look. There's a way I got to be. And it was rather stifling, to be honest. I'm like, I don't know that I can show up like that. I don't know that I can dress like that and be that way in front of people. Now, granted, there are certain key things I picked up. You want to look and be and sound professional, of course, but it was important for me to find that balance and find that mix. I could still have my style. I feel like I'm either kind of dressed in athletic gear and like yoga pants, or I'm like dressed for like, I don't know, I like the boho casual, boho chic sort of like
Very
flowiness.
so well.
Thank you. So there's that mix, right? And it was finding my space in that career shift and then also finding my comfort in that career shift to be the professional, but still feel like me.
How'd you find your way? So this is a very selfish question. I
Yeah.
feel like I'm in a transition personally. Like,
Mhm.
and I feel, and we all are. We're always becoming someone we've never been before or fine tuning ourselves in a way we've never fine tuned
Mhm.
before. And so,
Mhm.
like, I almost, not an identity crisis, but like figuring out what I want to represent me when it comes to like my clothes and my makeup and how I'm showing up in the world. And I keep finding myself being on calls with people and like looking at like other women on the calls and being like, what about her looks so polished and put together? Because when I look at myself in the frame, they don't look the same. Even though I know we're both doing epic shit and
Mhm.
equals, there's something about the way she shows up that like I admire, but I don't know what that looks like for me or what exactly it is for me to go like explore that area. And so I'm curious how you found your way.
Oh, okay. That is a really great question because I'm not there. It's not that I found like the way, like, and I've made it, succeed, success. It's just this is the inner work. This is the stuff, right? That like I feel is the continuous ongoing growth that makes it that, okay, you still might look at me and I still might look at you and be like, well, I don't do those post-it notes, but I really probably should. Like, I think that probably keeps her so organized and God, I'm not doing that or whatever. I like your plant better than my plant. We could always be in a sense of comparison, right? And I think this is why I definitely wanted to touch on this a little too, is really we can always be comparing, but doing the inner work and developing ourselves, our confidence internally is what's going to help us be like, well, whatever. This is how she does it. This is how he does it. This is how they do it. But I've got my niche, and this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. This is who I'm trying to help. And maybe it's not really about me and how I look or how I am showing up. My message is there. Who I want to help is there. And I'm telling you, you got that, right? So when you're maybe having that same internal struggle that I'm still having, it's we got to look at it later, take a beat, take a step back, and be like, okay, well, why do I feel that way? What maybe was it about that I thought was better for her and say, will that really make a difference for me? If it's something like, sure, I want to, zhuzh up my wardrobe, or maybe I want to like, maybe I need a trim or something. But when it comes down to it, comparison really does kill. And that's been my, that's been my struggle. That's been my ongoing work is to break away from the comparison. So there's no really there. It's the ongoing process of getting out of that headspace.
I love that. I know, like, for me, if you were to rewind a decade or so, it was
Mm,
very much that like comparison game of how I didn't stack up.
hmm.
Whereas now, when I recognize that I admire, it's more of like an admiration in someone else that they are presenting themselves in a way that like I'm not, but I really like the way they do that. Like, how do I step a little bit more into that? Or what about what I'm doing right now isn't really serving the identity of who I am anymore, but I haven't really learned how to like transition that because we're always growing and evolving. And like, and right now, I swear to God, I think it's skincare. Like I think that because I don't know, but like I'll look at people and I'm like, they look so put together. Like they look so polished. And my brain always goes back to how glowy their skin looks. And so
Mm,
for me, it's like, oh, okay, well, if they have glowy skin, well, what do I need to do differently? Because obviously I want glowy skin if that's what I keep like focusing in on, because it's not like I want to be them. But
right.
I'm feeling a little unpolished in the season that I'm stepping into. And so like I'm noticing those pieces.
Yeah. And
Um,
that's not a bad thing. I mean, right there, it's
no,
like, okay, so instead of comparison, yeah, that
observation.
observation and admiration, and that's a wonderful thing to, place the compliment on the other person and say, okay, well, let me dig into that. And what are the healthful things, the good things that I can do to achieve that? And
Mhm.
I love it because you're right. Glowing skin is like all the thing right now, right? It's that dewy look and the hair back and all like the bare face and or the natural looking makeup or the skincare regimen that gives you that glow. Or I mean, I'm for it all. It's just finding that maybe that one thing that, okay, I'm gonna wash my face every day. I'm gonna make sure I take off my
Maybe
mascara.
that was
That's
important.
where I'm at.
Maybe I really do care more than I thought I did. And like, it's not a good or bad, but like an observation about myself. It's just like when people like comment on runners or something, it's not, I don't, sometimes it's that comparison of like, we don't feel good enough in our own body and we feel fat, we feel frumpy, we feel lethargic. And so like, we're projecting that we're never going to be as good as them. But
Mm,
sometimes it's like I feel like as we're growing in ourselves and that awareness piece starts to shift, it's like, oh, I'm not actually comparing myself to them. They
mm,
have something that I don't have for myself that I'm seeking. So, like,
mhm.
now let me reverse engineer. If that's something I admire and something that I want for myself, what things do I need to do a little differently to step into that identity that obviously I'm finding value in and seeing value in?
Yeah, and I that resonates because just a couple weeks ago, so I do enjoy running now. Put me in a pool or a lake or something, forget it. I'm at the bottom. Like that's not my thing. But I do enjoy running, and that's a time for me, not just for fitness, it's for mental processing. It's for just sussing out things. I almost feel it's like praying with your feet. Like you're traveling, you are seeing sights, you're getting fresh air, and it's a good time to process. So it's a beautiful thing in my world. But then I'm on the treadmill here. I'm looking at the Peloton and I'm seeing this one particular trainer, and I'm watching. It was instead of doing the program with them and they're like coaching you on like speed it up or put your incline on, it was like this mini video short of her preparing to do a marathon. I guess it was the Boston Marathon. And I'm watching this. I'm like, God, she's like a gazelle. Jeez, she's so beautiful. Like she's on a race day and she's sparkling. She's stunning. And all these different things. And I'm like, this could take me in two different directions. It could be like, okay, where's my speed right now? How fast am I actually running? Like, where are my skills? But like you said, it's like, okay, seeing her go through those things and watching her and looking at how she is, it just was that. Ooh, it's that little kick in the ass. It's that little like, what can I do 5% better or differently to kind of maybe get me in that direction of like what I admire about that, what admire about her. And I picked up two things, just speaking about running, or it could be, parlayed to anything, is just um mindset around it, right? Like she could have looked at this big hurdle, this big obstacle. For her, it was this umpteenth marathon. For me, it might be doing a marathon. For somebody else, it might be doing a mile. Whatever it is, just looking at the challenge in a fun and different way and saying, I get to go after this. I get to try this. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. If I fail, so what? I've taken that step and then the next step and the next step and the next step to kind of make it happen. So even with like, skincare or whatever, like, okay, I'm going to look at my routine and see what I could kind of tweak here because we could always improve.
Yeah, and I love there's two things that you touched on that I love. One being that like the what if I fail? And it's like what if I try this thing and I don't like it? Okay, well then you learned what you do and don't like about
Yep.
life. Like
Mm-hmm.
what a win. I
Yeah.
don't think that that is failure. I think it's that moment of like pausing and being like, do I really not like this or am I just uncomfortable because I'm not good at it yet? And that's a very those are very different answers that tell you what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing you touched on was like that feeling of like, oh, this could go two ways. And I think that that feeling is so important to tune into because the difference between the comparison game, I'm not enough feeling that has a very distinct, like heavy feeling in the body
Mm-hmm.
versus the like, like almost that like inspirational nudge into a direction that maybe you want to go explore. Like it's so funny because it's like the same moment, right? But like you will go very different ways. And I am all about chasing the like nudges of curiosity. And if it's a moment of like comparison and it feels heavy and like I'm not enough, it's like, oh, that's something we need to explore because like there's something here that's unresolved. I don't need to pay attention to that thing. I need to pay attention to like what's going on in here. Why did I feel that way?
Very
Oh,
true.
it's so good.
Yeah, very true. It's definitely there's a lot of like forks in our roads, right? Forks in our paths that the fear will stop us, the self-doubt will stop us. And it's not easy to always overcome that, but like you said, looking internally as to, well, why do I feel that way? And what would it hurt to try the other route? Yeah.
Mm. Can I ask you something personal?
Sure.
So we're talking about like the stacking up. And then a lot of times for women, it comes in the form of our body image. And
Mm-hmm.
I know you spent a long time in the competitive field
Mm,
where people were like your success was literally dependent on the way your body looked. Like that was your job to look a certain way. And
yeah.
I know you've transitioned out of competitive mode and into like living mode. What has that transition been like? And like, what are you learning? Because I feel like that it takes a long time to come out of that in a like self-assured way. Oh, I
Yeah.
just got teary-eyed thinking about it.
Oh, so you feel something in that, like it's a part of your journey too, that type of feeling. Well, yeah, I don't mind opening up and getting vulnerable about this because it's been a journey, it's been a path. I so yes, I've done years of competitive bodybuilding, and don't get me wrong, it was 3 years. It was enjoyable for sure. It was enjoyable to go through a challenge. But if I look to before that, um, I'm a person that's always had a struggle with self-assuredness, self-doubt, self-esteem, all these self things, right? All these things that like the lack of self-confidence. And I'm like, God, what the heck? Like, where did this come from? Why? Like I can maybe say that I could look in the mirror and I don't feel like I can pick myself apart at this point, say, I don't like this, I don't like that. But back as a kid, I could do that all day long. And I think that's where a lot of things began. I had a good childhood, then things started to get a little tumultuous with family life and with parents divorcing. At the same time, coincidentally or maybe not coincidentally, I felt like I was getting picked on a lot at school. And maybe it was the fact of being like this wounded baby deer. I was in my own head, upset, whatever. And then how that reflected to the kids around me, it just was a perfect storm. And so through the inner work and through the questioning and wondering and seeking advice and help and stuff. I feel like that's where I've pinpointed that kind of impetus of where all this began. And so as I go through junior high, that's a whole shitstorm right there of changing body and hormones. And then it led into high school, which then led into even college. And these self-doubts kind of strung along with me. And now I found my interest and my passion for helping people, my desire and my passion for nutrition and fitness was just what I wanted to do professionally. So as it flowed into my career, I'm like, well, I'm helping people with their confidence and not so much, yes, they want to look a certain way, but it's always been for me about how you feel internally. If you feel good, if you feel healthy, it's going to show better on the outside. So it was neat to dig into like, well, maybe why did I even into it to begin with? Because I liked feeling good. And I knew that if I ate the right things and I did the right movements or just something that felt good for me, I can show up better to the outside world. I can have that external confidence because I have the internal good feeling. And there's something to be said for that because the weird way I come about it is true, right? It's
Yeah.
really true. Um,
When
so
you
I,
feel good, you make better choices.
yeah,
Surround
yes,
yourself with better people. Like things are just in the better column.
yeah, all around. Yes, you're leveled up in all areas because your health is in check or you're working on the health. So when it came to the competition thing, I've seen other people do it. I'm like, ooh, can I really put myself out there and like be on stage, like on display? And with all the armor and the walls I've built up, I'm like, you know what? Maybe that's a way to kind of like rip off a band-aid or take that step. Oh, like we were just kind of talking about, right? Like do that thing, right? I'm seeing a couple of friends do. I'm like, oh, can I do that? Can I do something like that? I love to work out. I love to see, challenge myself. So can I do that what they're doing? And so I thought, well, shit, let's just give it a shot. Um, and through that, in deciding I'm going to do it the most healthful way I can, I wasn't taking shortcuts or whatever. Again, health being the focus. It was really interesting in that I overcame certain hurdles and obstacles thinking, well, do I have to take a shortcut? Is there a faster and better way to do it? Or can I do this as healthfully as possible? Which I think I achieved. But
What
then,
a great question.
yeah, it's understanding that like, okay, you want this certain outcome, but you don't want to shortchange yourself in getting there, right? So as I am competing my first year, I see how there are maybe some other people that are doing it that are eating the bad foods, but they're trying to make their macros, right? They're not focusing on health and nutrition. They're kind of doing it, whatever will fit into the numbers, but they're feeling like crap. Right. And so I thought, well, that's one vote of confidence in the way that I decided to do this. Um, but then the other side of it too is everybody had this layer of pressure on them, which doing it the healthful way, doing it the not as healthful way, there's this layer of pressure to you paid the money, you bought the skimpy little suit, you're going to be out in front of people and you have to be seen in that way. So no matter what way somebody found that's going to be the best way for them, you're sticking to it, you're going to make it happen. And come hell or high water, you're going to do what it takes to present yourself in the best light. Now, so I did the 3 years. I competed. I won my first two. The last one I had gotten second place. Great stuff. Coming out of it, the dieting out of it was really difficult. Training yourself to just go back to normal life and eat in a normal way. And normal as in not monitoring every chunk of, not a whole banana, but like a third of a banana, weighing that out, measuring it. How many grams is that? Being so aware of what all you're putting in and calculating all of the things, how much you're exercising, realizing that whichever way you do it, whatever way I wanted to compete healthfully, it's still a lot of monitoring. It's still a lot of, I don't know, like
It's really fun. You are fine tuning
fine
like
tuning. the pressure on you to fine tune and be that specific about calculating and knowing everything that you're
The
putting in.
optimization.
Yes, yes. So I've realized that for me, it's wonderful to say, did it enhance my self-confidence? In a way, just to say, check, check, I've done that thing. It felt really good to succeed at that. But it didn't really fix the inner things of, okay, am I still feeling like I can show up anywhere and look like this or look like that, or look like this or look like that, and show up in a place and internally feel I have that confidence to show up and as my best self and sparkle and shine and show up how I think God intended me to show up. And that's just with that good feeling good about myself, positive energy. So all in all, to say it took getting on stage to do that accomplished thing and feel good about the success, but it didn't change anything internally. And so all of that pressure, all of the stuff I learned about, calculated diet and calculated exercise, I feel better. I still feel better going with the flow and doing the exercise that feels right for my body, not for show, but for feel, right? Not for cutting and building that specific muscle. It is for how it's going to make me live longer and show up better at the end of the day, the end of the month, at the end of the year, at the end of my life. I want that longevity of that health span. And yeah, I think that I'm glad to have tried it. But the internal work that I've been working on after the fact is so much more important than kind of popping yourself out there and I don't know, the challenge in that way.
I love how intentional the transition out is. When I think
Mhm.
about like, here's our like going and competing in a figure or bodybuilding competition may not be relatable to the general public, right? But
Yeah.
a woman who grows a baby and gives birth, who is
Mhm.
like now in this like after birth phase of like my body hasn't even recovered yet, and I definitely don't look like I have before. My body grew organs, shed organs, like things are all different.
Mhm.
And it's very easy, I feel like, for women to go to like the two camps of I have to get right back on regimen. Like, we cannot do this. I'm not losing myself. I'm not going to become my mom, my grandma, the lady down the street. Like, that's not the life I want. So I've got to like be militant about this and getting my body back. Where you feel like the other pile is like the women who are just like, I just gave birth and like, who gives a shit?
Right.
And so like I feel like those are the both extremes. And
Mhm.
I hope that this encourages more women to realize that like there's an in between where it's like I don't have to be calculated. I don't have to hate my body for what it looks like and where it's at and what it doesn't do for me. And I
Mhm.
don't have to not care about my body either, but I get to have the intention of how do I want to feel and how do I take care of myself so that I feel the way that I want to feel, regardless of the like what I see in the mirror part or what size my pants are. And I wish that we talked more about that. It's not always about the shape and the size. It's like the
Right.
feeling of like, how do I feel my best today? And if we're moms, like I feel like it's I got a lot to handle. I'm gonna need to feel my best. And am I gonna feel my best if I'm living on like Twinkies and Ho-Hos and Doritos? Like, no, I'm gonna feel drained and that's gonna add to my mental health problems that I'm having. And
Mhm.
being so restricted, that's not going to help either because I'm always going to feel less than. I have a brand new newborn at home. I can't be tracking all of this stuff. So I
Right.
love the intention that you shared. And I was just trying to bridge that gap between relatability. I just love that it's about the intention of how do I want to feel in
Mhm.
my own body and what's going to set me up for success.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. That is very outside of the norm, that competition lifestyle. And that's where it's just like, it's not reality. It's not real life. Like when I think back to like, oh, I looked and I on social media, I saw those women competing. So I thought, oh, do I want to do that? it's the same thing as comparing yourself to the neighbor down the street. It's the same thing. Social media, oh my gosh, I have a love-hate relationship with it because we could all get caught up at the end of the day or wherever and scroll hole, and we can see what someone else is looking like or somebody else is doing or the diet plan somebody is succeeding with or whatever. And whether you are that mom at home and you just had a baby or you had a baby 10 years ago, you have your body is your gift. And if you can't work on how to feel your best in your home, in your own skin, I mean, that's what comes down to the most important thing is how do we feel important? How do we feel confident? And how do we feel healthy so that we can show up to be our best selves in the body that we're given? Because we can't compare ourselves like that all the time. It's draining. Um, and when we do those little healthful things, we're showing up for our family better. We're showing up for ourselves better. We're showing up at work better. Um, and just makes life a little bit easier, just breaking out of that cycle.
I love that. And I'm going to be vulnerable for a second and just outwardly share because I've been keeping this close to my chest because when you heal from a binge eating disorder and the pendulum swings to orthorexia, and then you try to like undo that and find your middle, like it gets really messy. Like
Mhm,
I had to learn how to have peace in my home, like you said, like peace in my soul. How do I learn how to eat for how I want to feel, not how I want to look or what, or because I hate the way I look in like both ends of that pendulum. And so like for the last like 3 years, I've been in a really good place, like very solid size 12, but I've never been more healthy and whole and like present and alive in my body. And I'm entering a season where what was good enough for me a few months ago feels like I'm not taking care of myself now. And so like I'm entering a season of like how do I fine tune some things because I am not feeling my optimal self anymore? Like, I know there's another layer I'm meant to step into in this season
mhm.
without triggering all of the unhealthy shit that led down the other paths. And so, like, I just want to share that out loud because it's not a one and done journey. Like, it's always evolving. It's always like you checking in with yourself and recognizing what is or isn't working for you in the season that you're at with like zero shame and zero judgment. I'll be the first to tell you, like, I'm terrified because I don't want to accidentally trigger the unhealthy
Mm.
parts of my athletic self, but I want to be more athletic in my body. Like I feel less springy and I'm like, I don't like that anymore. Like that worked and it was a nice season, but like now I got to figure out how to show up in that way without it consuming me because that was how it happened last time.
Right. And that's being really aware. Let me ask you, do you, um, either or both,
Yeah.
do you spend time journaling, like writing all of this out? The other side of it is kind of spending quiet time to meditate on this and
Yeah.
really work through the emotions of that and sit in peace and kind of ask for the answer of like,
Yeah.
where do I feel like comfortable in my next step? Where would I like to move in this season?
Yeah. Um, it's been a really long process,
Yeah.
longer than I think I like, much longer than I think I would like it to be. And where it comes always is like, it's me, for me, where I am at in my own journey is me recognizing that I have to hold space
Mm,
for the previous versions of myself to let her know we're okay.
yeah.
I have to be the grown up for her. And it's so funny to say that because she's a 28, 34-year-old woman that I'm holding space and telling it's going to be okay too.
Mm,
Because she's really scared that if we get more structured and have very intentional, like, so for me, what has been working really well for me is that I no longer have very set workouts, which I used to be really rigid about my workouts. And it was like the question is how do I want to move my body today? And
mm,
sometimes as It has to be for 45 minutes. Like that's where my happy spot is. And it can be like a walk or it can be a gym workout. I've got my bike and my weights over here in the corner of the room. And so like it's always how do I want to move my body today? And
Hmm.
that has worked really, really well. And right now I have some specific goals that I would like to achieve, which are going to require me to be a little bit more structured in
Hmm.
my workout stuff. And so she's going, wait, 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 wait. The last time that we got really structured, our pendulum went from binge eater to orthorexic, and our whole life was consumed by being healthy. Like that was not good for us. That like led to a lot of bad places. Like this is a no-no. And so like a lot of my journaling has been about showing her all of the skills and tools to let her know we're not the same person we were back then. But it's still scary
Oh
because
yeah.
like I don't want ever want to go back to an unhealthy part of myself. Because while I looked healthy, I was terrified of food. I was afraid to miss a workout. I wasn't actually present in conversations because I was always thinking about what I did or didn't eat, the workout that I was going to have to do to like undo all the shit. That's not healthy. I was consumed.
Right.
And then my relationships weren't there because like I was always focused on my health aspect and my career part and how to balance them. And so for me, I love that you asked that question. For me, the journaling always comes back to having to like show myself all the things I've learned and evolved into that we're not the same person
Yeah.
and just holding space for those feelings as they pop up and just letting them be and like grieving it. There's a lot of grieving, which is a weird thing to say.
Right. I mean, when I ask that and I hear your explanation, I feel that. That is 1,000% what you said when you swung back the opposite direction, and it wasn't living to you. It stopped you from having quality relationships. It hindered life. And that's exactly where I was in those competition days. It was not real life. Um you don't want to go back to that. And the journaling and the not pushing down, not suppressing that person of that afraid 20, you say 25, 28-year-old, something in
Yeah.
there. You know, for me, it's that little girl that was screaming, like, do this thing to show that you can, to show up and be that wow person. You know, she's still there. I think she's like 9 years old. So same deal. Like if I'm in a journal or if I'm gonna to pray or I think on this, I'm gonna give her a seat at the table, like you give your girl a seat at the table, and we can, in our minds and in our hearts, wrap our arms around these girls and say, "You're along for the ride. We are doing some good work to not have to be back in that place again, but we can make it, right? We're taking little steps at a time to progress in a gentle way, in a positive direction, giving ourselves grace because, you know, we've all got our
Sometimes
spots.
this is gonna sound so crazy, but I think like you'll relate to this, and hopefully I don't sound crazy to other people, but it is what it is. Sometimes I have to thank her for experiencing and going through what she did, because had she not, we would have never been able to come out the other side to learn what we know now to like do things differently.
Yeah.
And that is a really hard conversation to have with yourself to like because you are the like she became you, you were her. Like it's such a weird meta type space, almost an out of body space.
Mhm.
But like it's also true. So sometimes I have to validate her in what she went through and the things that she learned and the things that she experienced and the skills that she hadn't like developed yet because whether no one taught her, she just didn't know how to like utilize them. So sometimes you just really do need to see that version of yourself and then show all of the evidence leading up to that of why it's going to be okay this time and how aware you are and that you understand some of the triggers and feelings and like the what is it, the precursors,
Mhm.
and that sometimes you know what, just like everything else, I'm not going to know what I don't know until we know, and we're going to deal with that too.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
good.
It is good. There's going to be some ebb and flow, and there's going to be more. We know there's going to be more struggles ahead of us. But like you said, that evidence, like the little wins, the little successes, the proof that I climbed out of this, I worked through that. And every little thing that maybe we've overlooked in the past is, it should be and it can be documented. Say, but I've succeeded here. I've come out of it in this way. I grew because of this. And here's where I was, and look where I am now. And we should not discount even the things that seem small. Like, I made this choice instead of that choice today, or a week ago, or whatever. Or I have this little bit of a mindset shift now where I used to think like this. And the small little things that keep us, progressing forward. It's not going to be, shoot like linear, or no, a vertical shoot, but it's going to help us progress forward and grow that confidence in ourselves to keep moving forward. And yes, we look back for guidance from, where we've been in the past, but just knowing that, man, life is beautiful and life is short, and we can feel better internally and externally, and develop that confidence in ourselves.
I love all the places we just went that stemmed from that like initial question of like, do you feel like you're not stacking up, or how do you comparing yourself to others and how you're fitting into this world?
Mhm.
And it's just so beautiful how like we're all there. Not one of us has it perfectly right. Just different levels of awareness and getting back to tuning in inward of like, where do I want this to go? And what is it that I'm actually seeking? And then what is the path I need to take in order to receive what it is that I'm seeking? So cool. So, so cool.
Yeah.
How do people connect with you outside of the show?
I do have the socials. I am on Facebook and Instagram. So on Instagram, it's my name with some underscores. So Rachel underscore Mateo underscore. And Facebook, just Rachel Mateo.
Ah, so, so good. Thank you for coming on today and just sharing your heart and your journey of what you have learned to work with for you with us today. Go reach out and be a human with this human. Like, she is such a gift, and I am so blessed that our paths crossed. And with that, that's two humans talking, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this episode as inspiring and actionable as I did. If you're ready to stop just surviving and start living a life where your health, your relationships, and your career work together without the burnout, then it's time that you join the Modern Women's Society. Inside, I'll walk you through my life GPS system, a proven blueprint to help you have it all while thriving. You'll gain tools, coaching, and the kind of clarity that brings big dreams to life without the stress, overwhelm, guilt, and shame that the modern woman is used to. We're going to create a life where you feel energized and excited to wake up every day and fulfilled when you put your head on the pillow. Click the link below to learn more and join countless other women who are redefining success on their terms. Because the life you've dreamed about is closer than you think. I'll see you on the inside.